Week 3 Environmental Lecture Part 2. Assessment occurs at all levels. It starts with the individual. What symptoms are they experiencing? At the community level, it is the pollution that affects many people. Globally could mean it changes the climate or water supply worldwide. Ask yourself, how does the environment impact directly or indirectly at the following levels? Individual, family, city, states, global. This is an excellent example of how the environment affects a person's health. Here you can see the waste being emitted from the factory, the gasoline, and the automobiles. It gets dispersed into the air, it absorbs by the food, gets put into the rain, which then affects the animals that we eat and our drinking water. It also then is in the air, where we have inhalation, absorb it, and ingest it. From there, these all move into how we intake it and then how we metabolize, store, and distribute it, which could mean it settles in our organs, tissues, blood, and fat. Then we excrete some, but most of it stays in here, which then affects our health. These are terms to be familiar with when discussing environmental health. Environment, Consumer Confidence Report, or the CCR, Environmental Epidemiology, Environmental Standards, the Epidemiology Triangle, and Epidemiology. Healthy People 2020 focuses on the environment, which shows that it's one of the major concerns of the federal government. Environment and Risk and Disease, where we have the social determinants of health that affect it, and how those objectives focus on 6 themes, each of which highlights an element of the environment, all which we have already discussed. In terms of environmental epidemiology, the environment is the air, water, soil, food, temperature, humidity, and the wind. The pathogen is the agent, which can be chemical, biological, physical, or a combination of them all. The host is the community, age, gender, ethnic, culture, or disease states, which then contribute all to the disease. When we discuss toxology, we discuss drugs, pollutants that enter the body in a variety of ways. So how do we absorb those? Do you remember how? We either breathe them, absorb them through our skin, or ingest them. There are 4 groups of chemicals. Heavy metals, for example, lead, mercury, chromium, and arsenics. Hydrocarbons, formaldehyde, toluene, benzene. Irritant gases, chlorine, ammonia, hydrochloric acid. And then chemical asphyxiants, cyanide, carbon monoxide, and pesticides. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has created a program called Right to Know. This is the right to know what chemicals that affect you in your workplace. What chemicals are you working with? Hopefully you all, as working RNs, are familiar with OSHA. As of June 1st, 2015, the Hazardous Communication Standards, HCS, will require pictograms on labels to alert users of the chemical hazards they work with. Each pictogram consists of a symbol on a white background framed with a red border and represents a distinct hazard. The pictogram on the label is determined by the chemical hazard classification. It's important for you as the nurse to be competent in environmental health. Basic knowledge and concepts apply. Here, it's the population environment, pathways of exposure, hazards, prevention and control, interventions, and research. Basic knowledge should understand scientific principles and the relationships of people or populations and the environments, including work environment. Assessment and referral. Complete an environmental health history, recognize potential environmental hazards, sentinel illnesses, and make appropriate referrals. A thing to be aware of with a sentinel illness. It is not the same thing as a sentinel event. Sentinel illness is a disease or condition you don't normally see, but now you do. For instance, ringworm is now in the community as a wrestler contracted it from a non-cleaned wrestling mat. Advocacy, ethics, risk, and communication demonstrate the knowledge in the role. Legislation and regulations understand the policy framework and major piece of legislation and regulations related to environmental health. There are 4 basic principles with this knowledge. 1. Everything is connected to everything else. This is through evaporation and condensation. 2. Everything has to go somewhere. This is incineration, water discharge, landfilling, or burial in the soil. Solution to pollution is dilution. Garbage or human waste piped to the nearest stream or river. Today's solution may be tomorrow's problem. Garbage that went into unlined landfills are now contaminating groundwater, and gasoline tanks buried underground leak over time. Competence for environmental health starts with the assessment and the referrals. The first is the I Prepare mnemonic. This is included on your Canvas handouts. Please be familiar with this for your exam. Assessment starts with the windshield survey. What did you see that could affect the environment and those interacting with it? Is there pollution or hazards in the air, water, or food? Part of the risk assessment is knowing the difference between a point source and a non-point source. Point source is when the hazard is released into the environment from a single site. You can usually see this. Examples are smokestack, hazardous waste site, or an effluent pipeway in pipe in a waterway. Non-point source is more diffuse. It's not from a single site. It's harder to see. Examples are traffic, exhaust, and noise. Fertilizer, pesticide runoff, animal waste from wildlife or animal agriculture into nearby bodies of water.